The human body already runs like a system. Your heart doesn't beat randomly, it runs on electrical signals. Your brain sends impulses for your nervous system, and your muscles move when energy is transferred to them. Your cells produce energy, store it, and release it when needed. Everything we do, thinking, moving, reacting, requires energy, and this isn't theory, it's measurable. If you looked at the human body without emotion or identity, you would see something very familiar. A structure that stores, uses, and distributes energy where needed. In simple terms, a battery. The heart, brain, muscles each play roles similar to the battery's components. Heart, the power source, pumping energy into the system. The brain, the control and distribution center, directing energy to where needed. And muscles, the output, using energy to produce movement and action. You store it, release it, and direct it. With this said, it isn't hard to compare the human to a battery. This could be seen as a metaphor or analogy, or at the same time, is it literal? Without us humans, us people, or cells, nothing in the world would be powered, nothing in the world would move, nothing would happen. Ultimately, we are the energy source behind all that happens in the world. If factories, corporations and businesses could be seen as machines, then we are the elements or cells or batteries which power those machines, ultimately using us to power the machine of control, manipulation, profit and gain. The comparison isn't complicated, it's direct. Most people only see the physical, the 9 to 5, the traffic, the bills, the cost of living, the news, the world events, the physical energy. But what people miss is that we don't just run on food, it's thoughts, emotions, our environment, stress. Ever noticed good news gives you energy and bad news drains you instantly? It's not imagination, it's your system reacting to the external influence. And in the modern world, it often feels like what is pushed the most is what drains us the most. Less of what lifts, but more of what agitates. So naturally, we have to ask, are we reacting or are we being guided to react? Now a battery needs two poles, division, two sides, the positive and negative. And in the world, division is everywhere, it mirrors this, the positive and the negative, the logic, the emotion, the confidence, the doubt, night and day, up and down. On its own, division isn't a problem. Because just like the battery, it creates something useful, movement, growth, direction and charge. When we look within ourselves, we have division within people, different views, different experiences, the larger scale, groups, sides and nations. Division isn't rare, it's everywhere. And on its own, it isn't a problem. But where it changes is when power doesn't just exist, but when it's shaped. And if you control the distance between two sides, you control the amount of energy being produced. Working very similar to the two ends of a magnet, only in this case, the closer together the two ends are pushed, the more chaos and destruction which is created, the more energy which is produced. Noting on a magnet the two poles, the north and the south. The world pulls on this polarity, making one side feel right, one side feel wrong, turning difference into opposition, turning opposition into identity. Now people aren't just thinking, they're reacting, and reaction is energy. The bigger the divide, the stronger the reaction. The stronger the reaction, the more energy that is created. Think 9/11, think COVID, think world events. And once that energy is there, it can be directed, focused, amplified and used. That's when division stops being natural and starts becoming a tool, because the goal is no longer balance, it's output. Politics, religion, culture, identity, sexuality, race and even sport all divide, all create conflict, all generate energy. Religion often separates communities, drawing lines between us and them, faiths, practices and beliefs. The more lines that are sharpened, the more reaction is produced. Politics does the same, turning ideology into identity, turning disagreement into opposition. The further apart the sides, the stronger the response, which spills over onto the streets. Race too, as we've seen throughout history, can be amplified into polarity, creating tension where difference is highlighted. Even those not directly involved feel the effects. Children grow up shaped by division they never chose. The wars, the conflicts, the battles throughout history, the polarity. Even the word battle sits close to the word battery. The two sides charged and opposed until the battle commences and the two sides are pushed together to create immense levels of energy, seen as destruction, death. The battles, the conflicts, the wars themselves contain polarity, create division, create energy. But even further, after the conflicts, battles and wars, are the effects on the peoples and the countries, often dividing the country into a north-south divide, again similar to a battery's poles, the positive and the negative, constantly creating that opposition, that charge, the split between the two.
So I'm going to step in with parallels between North and South wars and electromagnetism. I'm going to give examples of parallels I found in my research between civil wars in the world between the North and the South and concepts of electromagnetism. The terms North and South are applied to the poles of magnets. A magnet is any object that produces its own magnetic field that interacts with other magnetic fields. The magnetic field is represented by what are called field lines that start at a magnet's north pole and end at the south pole. As shown in the top diagram, if you put the north pole of one magnet against the south pole of another, the field lines go straight from the north pole of the first magnet to the south pole of the other, creating an attractive force between the two magnets. If you have two magnets next to each other and either their north poles or south poles are facing, as shown in the bottom diagram, the field lines move away from each other, creating a repelling force between the two magnets. Electricity runs within us, where our cells are specialized to conduct electrical currents, which are required for the nervous system to send signals throughout the body and to the brain, making it possible for us to move, think, and feel. And we generate our own magnetic fields, as does the Earth, as well as other life on Earth. There is so much more to us than our physical forms. Electromagnetism is an integral part of existence on Earth and throughout the universe, which is a physical interaction that occurs between electrically charged particles, the force of which is carried by electromagnetic fields composed of electrical fields and magnetic fields. I bring the subject of magnetism and electromagnetism into the picture because of how they appear to have been deliberately applied negatively by the controllers to create the conditions necessary for war, destruction, and suffering in this realm, by dividing people of the same countries into North and South, and then by instilling different belief systems in each pole of this magnet, which creates an attraction, or perhaps action is a better word, to facilitate the destruction of each other. Now I'm going to bring forward several examples of the North-South dichotomy being used to create division, discord, violence, and war. Here are some examples, starting with the American Civil War. Historically described as a civil war between the northern and Pacific states, known as the Union, or North, and the southern states, known as the Confederacy, or South, over the status of slavery and its expansion into newly acquired land after the Mexican-American War. I have many questions about what was really going on during the American Civil War, and have come to the conclusion that while something was going on during that period of time, it was not what we've been told. Next, Ireland. Ireland was partitioned on May 3rd of 1921, when the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland divided Ireland into two Home Rule territories, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, with the stated goal of remaining within the United Kingdom and eventually reunifying. But Northern Ireland remained part of the United Kingdom, and Southern Ireland became the Irish Free State. Between 1920 and 1922, during which time the partition occurred, there was violence in Northern Ireland in defense or opposition to the new settlement, and its capital, Belfast, saw savage and unprecedented violent riots between Protestant and Catholic civilians. All of this led directly to the Troubles, a period of unrest and violence that escalated across Northern Ireland between the Irish Catholic nationalists and Irish Protestant Unionists between 1969 and 1998. Next is the example of North and South Korea. After the August 15th surrender of Japan in 1945, the Korean peninsula was divided at the 38th parallel into two zones of occupation, with the Soviets administering the northern half and Americans the southern half. In 1948, as a result of Cold War tensions and the occupation zones between two sovereign states, Socialist North Korea and Capitalist South Korea, the governments of the two new Korean states both claimed to be the only legitimate Korean government, and neither accepted the border as permanent. The Korean War started in 1950 when North Korea invaded South Korea on June 25th, following clashes along the border and insurrections in the South. North Korea was supported by China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea by the United Nations, principally from the United States. The Korean War was one of the most destructive conflicts of modern times, with around 3 million deaths due to the war, and proportionally a larger civilian death toll than either World War II or the Vietnam War, caused the destruction of nearly all of Korea's major cities, and there were thousands of massacres on both sides. Same idea with the example of North and South Vietnam. The Geneva Conference was convened in 1954 in Geneva, Switzerland, to settle unresolved issues from the Korean War and the First Indochina War in Vietnam. The Geneva Accords established North and South Vietnam with the 17th parallel as the dividing line, with North Vietnam being communist and South Vietnam being capitalist. The agreement also stipulates that elections are to be held within 2 years to unify Vietnam under a single democratic government. These elections never happened, and within a year, the United States helped establish a new anti-communist government in South Vietnam and began giving it financial and military assistance. In Vietnam, by the time of John F. Kennedy's death in November of 1963, there were 16,000 American military personnel, and the Gulf of Tonkin incident took place in 1964, an international confrontation after which the United States engaged more directly in the Vietnam War. There was allegedly a second incident on August 4th of 1964. This second occurrence has long been said not to have taken place, and there are the people who believe that the first Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened. Whether or not the Gulf of Tonkin incidents actually happened, they were used as an excuse for the Gulf of Tonkin resolution passed by Congress on August 7th of 1964, giving President Lyndon B. Johnson authority to help any Southeast Asian country whose government was considered to be in jeopardy of communist aggression and was considered the legal justification for the beginning of open warfare with North Vietnam. The Vietnam War ended with the fall of Saigon on April 30th of 1975, when the capital of South Vietnam was captured by North Vietnamese troops, and the beginning of the reunification of Vietnam into the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. This same pattern happened throughout the 20th century in countries like Sudan and Chad and Yemen, to name a few of many.
Michelle, absolutely brilliant. About that, guys, for facts upon division. Wow. That's showing it perfectly, Michelle. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
You sounded like a female Ken Burns then. I said that before, bloody hell. Ooh.
Yeah, it's just, our work just comes together beautifully. It just feels like the work that we do together, Chad, is just building on things that we've done separately, things that we've done in the past together, and it's just the picture's becoming clearer and clearer.
And you know, in regards to what we're talking about, the batteries, the division, the harvesting, it's becoming clearer than ever for so many people, isn't it? Even like people like my nan now, they're seeing it clearly. Like the average person, if you like, are starting to see it so clearly. And it's
And
so
I
demoralizing, you know, it's just breaking the people, isn't it? It's breaking us mentally and physically. It's so inverted, division everywhere in every single aspect. We're fighting over everything: veganism, meat eaters, football, religion. Our thoughts on Iran, let's say, and we're not even in there. And this is the side consequences of the media as well, isn't it? Things that we aren't directly involved in or we wouldn't even know about. We're starting to draft opinions and be polarized towards one side due to external influence. You know, there's people in countries that will go and rip other people's heads off because of the news they hear, and it's just new, you know. So I think what you're doing, Michelle, is absolutely just wonderful, and I'm so glad to be part of all this with you. I really am.
and I feel the same way about the work you're doing, Chad. And that's why it's so important for us to get this information collated for our viewers and get it out there so people can see even more clearly what we're seeing. And I know I can speak for myself on this, and I think we share the same view about how there was a perfectly aligned circuit board on the surface of the earth that carried this free energy system that we see with all the buildings and how they're laid out and angles and windows. It was all an intentional design.
100%.
And then how that got destroyed and how it got turned into the matrix. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is what we're looking at. And the challenge is to get this conceivably brand new information out to the public for them to consider what we're seeing and the conclusions that we've drawn from it. And I think we've done a good job with what we put together for this presentation to demonstrate that.
100%, Michelle. You know, it's building on past work, but it's hopefully this is full. So I suppose the question from here is, if humans are batteries, what are we powering? And you've already said it, you know, if we step back and look at ourselves, we are cells, which is, you know, a battery is considered a cell, or the cells make up a battery. So we're cells, and we even call ourselves selves, you know, in a larger circuit. And that circuit is the earth, which can be considered a board, you know, with its mountains, rivers, forests, winds, oceans. The natural elements of it would have been natural pathways and natural components of the circuit, where energy flowed freely, you know, recycling, connecting, sustaining life. We fully integrated with that system, every tree, every river, or part of the same system that carried energy and information, and us humans, cells within that circuit, receiving, storing, transmitting energy, working side by side with it, incognito, you know, like working together as a symbiosis, rather than us taking from the earth, which seemingly we've done now for quite a while. But as you say, it wasn't always like that. Even when we look back at stories of religion and myths, such as the Buddha, you know, we see him sitting under a tree, the connection of the tree, which is a sort of transmitter, connected to the earth and sky, absorbing the energy, aligning with the natural currents of the earth. We speak about ley lines, the tree itself, a conduit, you know, but then the inversion, and this is what we're trying to highlight. When the circuit is inverted, the natural becomes man-made, and the free flowing has been rerouted through wire screens of concrete. We could relay our rivers and different things to the natural components of a circuit, but the rivers themselves are replaced by motorways. The forests have been replaced by power lines. The natural springs now are replaced by taps. You go to town centres and you find monuments where springs once stood, where we could get water, we could get natural resource. The trees themselves, as we say, natural conduits for energy, connection and life. And now we're surrounded by concrete roads, sensors, transmitters, artificial vibrations and frequencies. And, you know, the natural connection once helped connect us and guide us through life. The natural grid, the natural system, we empowered it, it empowered us. And now you could even think, like when people think of the ether and such things like that, the internet mimics the ether. This is how everything that is natural has been inverted in a man-made way, where energy is stored and free flowing. That's been forgotten now. It's now replaced by computers, data measured, stored, copied, and we could tap into it via computers again. When once upon a time, this is said to have been natural to man. And now also the TV, the screens, they're almost like shockwaves within the circuit. They amplify the energy, redirect it, sometimes distort it. We watch it react. We are fearful, we're angry, we can be excited, we desire adverts, or drain from our so-called batteries, our life source, our energy. And it's not in a natural cycled way, but in a manufactured flow. Even language carries its hidden current. We speak about the woods and forests being healthy for us, and if you flip the W in wood, it creates the word mood. And when we do walk through these places, it changes our mood. We feel good because of the natural frequency and connection of the circuit. It's still there, it's just camouflaged by all the crap of today, if you like. We've even spoke about tree and free, haven't we, and free energy. For me, like when we talk about this, and it might be a little bit negative in a way, but it's a change from the slaves of the past, which were known slaves of the past, to like an unknowing slave of today with invisible chains which we can't see. But like if we attempt to break, there's far-reaching consequences, and we know this. And we're being pulled in so many directions by unwanted divisions and polarized to one or two poles, draining ourselves. So yeah, think about it. We give our energy, we store it, transfer it, it flows once in a natural way, now in a manufactured way.
And that's a good intro, Chad, to what I want to talk about, which is the Earth as a circuit board. And that's one of the places where our collaboration really got going. Yeah. When you did Sports Circuit. And that built on work that I had done. And then you just took it to a whole nother level in an incredible way. And for those of our viewers who haven't seen your Sports Circuits work, which is on both of our channels, I highly recommend it. But my research for several years has been taking me down the whole corridor of the Earth as a circuit board and finding evidence to support this. And the deeper I look into it, the more I find. And what I'm going to share today is just a small fraction of the evidence that I've gathered at looking different places, and keep adding to my collection. And hopefully we'll be able to get it out in a coherent way one day. But I think the specific infrastructure on the Earth, like I mentioned earlier, was arranged as a circuit board for the once free energy generating electromagnetic grid system of the ancient advanced civilization all over the surface of the Earth, and which I believe existed up until relatively recent times. We are still using much of the enduring and sophisticated infrastructure of this advanced civilization in the present day, but it has been turned into the energy harvesting mechanisms of the matrix. So what exactly is a circuit board? A circuit board is a physical piece of technology that allows for the assembly of electrical circuits or data circuits on a horizontal layer of material. I think the existence of the original civilization was destroyed by a deliberately caused cataclysm that blew out the circuit board of the original energy grid within the last couple of hundred years at the most. And most of this incredible infrastructure that was constructed for it has been deliberately destroyed ever since then and into the present day, going back to the civil wars I was just talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
It's all connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
So to begin with making the connection of the physical infrastructure of the original civilization as a circuit board, I'm going to start with identifying the infrastructure found worldwide known as star forts and batteries. They're even called batteries in some cases. So in this example, there were at least 4 pairs of historical star forts situated along various points of the lower and upper New York bays including what is called the Battery at the southern tip of Manhattan Island. I consistently find star forts all over the Earth that are paired together in the same location or found in clusters of more than two. One definition of a battery is a device that produces electricity that may have several primary or secondary cells arranged in parallel or series, like these star forts, as well as a battery source of energy which provides a push or a voltage of energy to get the current flowing in a circuit. I started seeing connections between railroads and star forts when I found the former location of the Fort of Pensacola on the bottom right. So the top left is the diagram of it. Mm-hmm. This map shows its previous location with rail yards just below the former location of the Fort of Pensacola, the layout which immediately reminded me of circuit board diagrams.
Perfect. That looks wonderful. Yeah.
So you've got the railroad tracks here, and mm-hmm. I put actual diagrams to put next to it to show you the similarity.
That's wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Lighthouses played some kind of function in concert with star forts as well. Here are the lighthouses of New York Bay. I've come to believe that lighthouses had a far different function than a tower or structure containing beacon light to warn or guide ships at sea, and that they actually had a connection to light energy and its distribution on the grid system.
In 1912, a lighthouse keeper named Thomas Henley walked into the North Atlantic Research Institute in Halifax and handed them a leather journal. He told them to keep it sealed for 50 years. When they asked why, he said only that the light he'd been tending for 32 years wasn't lighting the way for ships. It was doing something else entirely, something the original builders knew, something we'd forgotten. Henley died 3 weeks later. The journal stayed sealed until 1962. What they found inside wasn't the ramblings of a lonely old man losing his mind. It was technical documentation of an energy system that shouldn't have existed in 1912. And the more researchers dug into the lighthouse itself, the more they realized Henley wasn't crazy. He was the last man alive who understood what the light really powered. Young Thomas grew up hearing stories about the old lights, the ones built before anyone could explain how they worked so well. His grandfather told him the lights were older than the keepers, that they'd been found, not built, that the first keepers were just men hired to maintain something already standing. The most detailed response came from a keeper at Montauk Point in New York. He described finding copper channels running through the bedrock beneath his lighthouse that were too precisely cut to be natural formations. The channels ran east directly toward Pemaquid, following a perfectly straight line for over 300 miles. When both lighthouses were operational, both keepers reported the same low-frequency vibration. When one light went dark, the vibration stopped at both locations. Henley's journal from 1901 contains his first theory. He believed the lighthouses weren't independent structures. They were nodes in a network, a grid of precisely positioned energy transmission points built by people who understood harmonic resonance and bedrock conductivity in ways we'd only begin to grasp a century later. The lights themselves weren't for ships. They were the visible byproduct of a much larger system, a system designed to transmit power wirelessly across vast distances using the Earth's natural crystalline structure as a conductor. This is where the journal gets specific. Henley documented that when Pemaquid's light operated at full intensity during specific lunar phases, the mechanisms in the foundation chambers drew measurable electrical current from the bedrock itself. He rigged a basic galvanometer and recorded voltage readings that fluctuated with the vibrations. The current wasn't coming from the lamp, it was coming up through the stone, through the copper channels, into the mechanisms and being amplified by the crystal arrays. He calculated the power output and realized something staggering. The energy moving through just one lighthouse node was enough to power a small city, but there were no cities nearby, no factories, no industrial centers that could possibly use that much electricity in 1901. So where was the energy going? Henley's notes from 1903 describe an experiment. He extinguished Pemaquid's light during a period when the lunar alignment indicated maximum harmonic resonance. Within an hour, he received telegraph messages from 3 other lighthouse keepers, on the network reporting unusual behavior in their mechanisms. Increased vibration, temperature changes in the foundation chambers. One keeper at Cape Elizabeth reported his light had spontaneously increased in intensity without any adjustment to the fuel flow. The network was self-balancing. When one node went dark, the others compensated, like a circulatory system rerouting blood around a blockage. This wasn't passive architecture. This was an intelligent system responding to changes in real time. He wrote that the lighthouse network predated the official construction dates by at least 200 years, possibly much longer. He based this on the erosion patterns in the foundation stones, the oxidation of the copperwork in the hidden chambers, and most significantly, on architectural details that appeared in lighthouses across 3 continents that had no documented contact with each other, the geometric ratios in the lens arrays, the specific alloy composition of the metalwork, the number of steps in the spiral staircases, the precise depth of the foundation chambers below sea level. These weren't coincidences or the work of individual builders making similar choices. They were specifications, a standardized design implemented globally by people who had the industrial capacity to execute at scale. Henley believed we'd found the lighthouses, not built them, that the official construction dates marked when we rediscovered and repurposed structures that had been standing dormant for generations, that the original builders had been part of a technologically advanced civilization that collapsed or disappeared, leaving behind a functional power grid we mistook for navigational aids.
I also consistently find lighthouses with astronomical alignments, like these examples, with the sun or moon directly aligned perfectly with them. And yes, the Statue of Liberty on top of Fort Wood even served as an operational lighthouse. Starting on November 22nd of 1886, a month after it was officially opened, until March 1st of 1902, for only 16 years, when we are told it was discontinued as a navigational aid. Mm-hmm. I think the land sank around lighthouses, star forts, and railroads when the energy grid was destroyed, like this example in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So you've got the historic railroad that went along the length of Cape Cod. It's no longer there anymore, by the way. And then you see what looks like land just offshore.
Be manipulated in a way where it kind of explodes, and then it would obviously affect the land, etc. The railroads kind of act as wires to the energy source, which is the lighthouse or other monuments and different things that you show, such as star forts. That's kind of the idea, that it's energy and it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was manipulated to destroy the grid system. The grid system itself was manipulated to destroy itself. And that this would have had land at one time instead of what we see today, where it looks all broken off.
Yeah.
And this is found everywhere. This is just one example. And so you have all these lighthouses along the coast. So of course they were built when they said they were built to guide ships. Yeah. So how about they were already there? And that's what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm saying.
Wonderful.
They were already there. They were serving a different function. Something happened to the grid system that destroyed it, and it just completely changed the surface of the earth. And lighthouses were left standing next to where there was now ocean, or whatever body of water you choose from.
And equating that to a circuit, all that it would need is it to be almost overcharged, and the power points of that circuit or the battery elements would obviously override, wouldn't they? And kind of
Right. It caused such a powerful destructive force that it changed the surface of the earth completely from what it was before. And so you have multiple effects coming from that. You have what's called the mud flood. It caused the earth to liquefy and undulate. You have what's called meltology, and you see the buildings, or you see the places that look natural, kind of, and they've gotten away with calling them natural, but they also look like like melted buildings as well.
Yeah, which would be explained by what you say. Yeah.
I think it caused the destruction of the giant trees. Mm-hmm. And without your input and influence to bring that to my attention, I would not have had that component, which was a critical part of this energy grid system. And that what we see today as volcanoes, because that's what we've been taught, are actually the remnants of these giant trees. And that's just one example.
And that narrative, we don't know how far it goes, does it? We even look at the sky, don't we? And we call them stars, but what is a star? What is everything around us? I think when you start to wake up, you question everything, don't you? You question.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
They've given us an explanation for everything.
Yeah.
Everything that exists on the surface of the earth, they've provided cover for. But I think as we go through what we're talking about for this on Earth as a circuit board and humans as batteries, their only goal is to extract our energy for themselves.
Yeah.
These beings that are behind what's taken place here, mm-hmm. that don't have the divine spark that humanity does. And so they need that, so they get it synthetically. So they get it by tricking us to give it willingly. Mm-hmm. That's what all this is about. Yeah. They don't care if we have a belief about something. That's fine with them. As we've been saying, beliefs can be manipulated.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter if we believe something. That's why they try to keep the truth from the masses.
I think, Michelle, that the main thing for them, as long as you've been polarized, as long as you've gone to a side, it's kind of a win in their eyes. That's how I would look at it. Because in my eyes, everything that I've taught myself and learned is balance. It's sitting in the middle, and from there, you are independent, sovereign, and you are yourself. And that applies to all things. But when you get polarized, that's when you can be controlled. So I think, if I'm going to give anything to anyone here, it's just to be yourself, be an individual, be balanced. Because as soon as you become one, right or wrong, even right or wrong, it polarizes you to one way. And, and although we are positive and light, we still sit in the middle, I believe, Michelle, do you? It's still very balanced.
Exactly. And in spite of everything that they've done to keep us from waking up, seeing these patterns that we've been seeing and drawing the conclusions that we've been drawing, for anybody to wake up at all is remarkable. And they tried to prevent it from happening every way conceivable, but they couldn't stop it. And so that's what we're here doing, is getting this information out to more and more people so they can at least make a decision on whether or not they think what we're saying has merit.
That's it, isn't it? That's exactly it.
Yeah.
For so long we've been Snow White, asleep. So
right. And we can provide quite a bit of information. In one of the series that I did on researching places viewers made in comments, I discovered airports having racing tracks in angular relationships short distance away. And I found many more examples of this since then. I first noticed this when I was doing research on the Shepherd's Bush district of West London based on a commenter's suggestion. In the process of doing that, I realized I had seen the same angular relationship between London's Heathrow Airport and Shepherd's Bush on the top left, where there had been a huge track at one time in White City that had been used for greyhound racing, among many other things. And in my own research of the Tampa, Florida neighborhood of Sulphur Springs, when I had noticed that the Tampa International Airport and the Sulphur Springs neighborhood in Tampa, Florida, where there was a greyhound racing track, had the same angular relationship. So these two here, but they turned these oval shapes into racing circuits. And you have, on a circuit board, you have elliptical shapes or oval shapes on circuit boards. So there is a connection with those shapes, and they're generating energy, like they do in stadiums, from these races on these tracks.
Yeah.
So you've got the races, in this example of the dogs, you have the crowds cheering. So you're generating a lot of energy from these types of events in that configuration.
100%.
So just the top two examples in London and Tampa, I highlighted in a video years ago, and then people left comments. Check out Montreal, check out Philadelphia, Toronto, Los Angeles, Sydney.
Brilliant.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So that started something, recognizing that pattern. And you find the same kind of thing with railroad yards, professional sports complexes, star forts, golf courses, and even amusement parks with similar characteristics and relationships to each other. And I'm finding this in different cities also. So I've given examples of the lines that are shown here in Toronto, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Baltimore go through professional sports complexes and rail yards, like in Toronto, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. And I think they're starting from the international airports in these different locations. We find the same kind of thing from that we did with the others, that they were starting at airports.
Yeah.
So I think airports were part of it too. So I'm just going to finish up here with this example in Nashville, Tennessee, and it combines the example of an athletic field, so this baseball field here, which is sandwiched in between Fort Negley, a star fort here, an old star fort, by the way,
clear as hell,
and the railroad yards. So again, to underscore that whole idea that we're looking at circuits that power this grid system. And these are patterns that are found in so many different places. And that's a lot of the information that I'm compiling, is all the examples that I found all over the earth of the same type of configuration to support the whole idea of Earth as a circuit board.
To me and you, sports aren't just games, are they? You know, it's a living, breathing battery. And, you know, when you think about it, the stadium itself is almost a larger battery. And we're the cells, or the energy within that battery, the two opposing sides, the two poles, that'll be the home and away. And when you think about it, as you've already pointed out, it's the energy within that stadium, thousands of people, which would be cells within that larger battery, storing, releasing, and transmitting that energy around the stadium. Every pass, every tackle, every shot, energy flows. The roar of the fans brings a surge. A goal scored is a spike in energy. A shot missed, tension, frustration, a temporary drain, if you like. The crowd is alive with its energy, and each fan is a small cell or a battery feeding into the larger battery itself. And when the game ends, for me, the energy doesn't just vanish, it pours out into the streets, into areas. And if we could see a map of the UK on, say, a Saturday when all the football's on, if you saw all the fans go back to their location and you saw the people that have lost versus the people that have won, you would see a negative and a positive, like aura almost. And I believe the people leave the stadium charged or polarized. Then it goes into the homes, it goes into conversations, into relationships with partners, friends, family. But not only that, it goes into the city and the environment. And we're talking thousands of people here leaving a stadium. So people often drink, they fight. That negative energy spreads out onto the streets, into workplaces, into homes, into moods. And the environment subtly changes because of that heightened positive, heightened negative energy. And sports are just a living example how division produces energy. And they sit in things called divisions. Teams sit in divisions, and that's exactly what they do. They divide people. And polarity, people can be amplified, directed. And that's what me and Michelle are trying to point out. And you could apply that same principle, the opposing sides, to tennis, to American football, to any other sports. There's always the two sides. And instead of enjoying something, enjoying a sport, enjoying the aspects of religion, enjoying the aspects of our differences, instead of that being
something that is embraced, it's turned and polarized into a weapon where we end up fighting each other and causes division amongst us.
I'm going to provide some examples of how modern civilization has broken and inverted the natural circuit. And this is based on my research findings. So this is in Hamilton, Ontario, and what comprises the Royal Botanical Gardens properties that sprawl along Hamilton Harbor in Burlington. So that would be this part up here. This is Hamilton Harbor, and that's connected to Lake Ontario. This is the western end of Lake Ontario. And you've got the Cootes Paradise Sanctuary here, which is wetlands. You have an arboretum and some other facilities of the botanical gardens over here. And the Cootes Paradise here is almost 1,500 acres or 600 hectares of the larger Dundas Marsh Crown Game Preserve. And it was 3,700 acres or almost 1,500 hectares at one time when it was established by the province of Ontario in 1927. This particular wetland contains diverse habitats. So this is getting back to what I was saying about this grid being destroyed and creating what we see today, including these marshy, swampy lands. And I also wanted to point out that there's a canal going right through here, the Desjardins Canal, and you can find it this way. So there was a canal here at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they tell us, like with the lighthouses and the star forts, that they were built in our modern history. So let's say sometime in the 1800s. You find things like canals in these marshlands, which it would make no sense for them to build a canal through. I'm saying it came after the marshy lands came after this was destroyed. And again, other examples. This is another part of the Royal Botanical Gardens there. And it's a landscape park with wide variety of trees and woody plants. You can see them up close when you go on the walking trails, which I've shown here. These are also the kinds of places you can find old growth forests and old growth trees.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Hendry Park there. It's a cultivated garden area. It's got a rose garden, healing garden, vegetable garden, all kinds of gardens, and a tea house. And then it's connected to the main center of the gardens here. And it's got special events and programs and indoor and outdoor displays. Okay, so you have this testament to the Earth's bounty, the Royal Botanical Gardens on the north side of Hamilton Harbor. What you have on the south side of it is the Bayfront Industrial Area.
Wow.
Which is a stark contrast to what we saw with the gardens.
Wow, that's brilliant, Michelle.
So the Bayfront Industrial Area is spread across the south side of it, and it's the city's largest industrial area.
Wow.
So on this side you have the industrial area, and on this side you have the Royal Botanical Gardens.
So that
Contrast,
half there has been harvested, hasn't it? Has just been harvested, and that's wow.
This area is the home to major steel producers and Canada's largest Great Lakes port with marine, rail, and road connections. So there's railroad all through here, and there's history of railroad through this area. And most of that's gone, but there's still some rail left. They have to have it for transporting their industrial products and freight.
What's left? What's left of it? The remnants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have steel producers like Stelco Rod and Bar in this example on this land that just looks completely yucky from all the industrial use of it. So they have Burlington Beach just above the canal going along the Lake Ontario shoreline on the east side of Hamilton Harbor. So you've got your lighthouses here. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got lighthouses and railroads beside these on these skinny strips of land. Again, and you see here, you see what looks like land in the water, a shallow area. So I'm saying it is land, and was more than likely above water at one point in time. But the reason I included this example is because in that Burlington Beach area, where the bridge is here in the middle is where the lighthouse is.
Look at that.
You've got these massive towers, these electrical towers, power lines that are running right beside the beach.
Wow.
And that's next to the Queen Elizabeth Way, which is the major highway through that area. It's one of Canada's busiest highways. So you've got a busy highway, you've got power lines, and you got the beach.
That's terrible. That is. That is terrible.
So this is normal for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
They probably don't even think about it, but that's what it looks like. And when I saw that in Hamilton, Ontario, I thought of this place that I found when I was tracking a different alignment. And this is the Lido or Lido Porcinus Orca Park in Messina, Sicily, and it's on the Strait of Messina. It's primarily a beach resort. But does that look like a beach resort you would like to go to? And then the same location in Messina, Sicily, you have these interesting looking squares next to the beach. And then here on Hormuz Island in the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, you have the same square kind of shapes that you can still see. There used to be a starport here. It's gone.
Brilliant.
But there's things you can still see in the landscape on Google Earth. So, again, it's like, what are we looking at here?
Gold. These examples are gold. Wow.
And
well
I
done,
just
Michelle.
gave the example of the circuit. That this is a chip on a circuit board. And so, looking at these things with that in mind,
yeah,
that again, it would appear that
crazy.
We're looking at a circuit board.
It's crazy.
I'm going to talk about emotional and cognitive energy as a resource and look at some examples of what I found again in my research on this aspect of it with emotional, cognitive, and frequency energy as a resource on this original energy grid on a specific energy line, with the example I'm giving of what I found in Berlin, where there are good examples of how modern systems capture and redirect this energy into powering social, economic, and ideological structures. So I'm going to start with the Berlin Dome of the Berlin Cathedral in Germany. It has 5 domes and a massive pipe organ. As organs would have been part of the system as well.
Yeah.
Everything that we're talking about.
Again, the word familiarity affects our organs, the vibration frequency, heart, brain.
Exactly.
Powerful, very powerful.
This particular pipe organ at the Berlin Dome has 113 stops with 3 ranks of 32-foot pipes on the pedal division. And I'm not sure what that is in meters. And a 4-manual console. When breaking down the word cathedral, we get the following Greek words, kathados or kata, meaning descent or down, and hedral, referring to a 3D geometric solid. Cathedrals function as acoustic frequency energy resonators, and resonators are used to either generate waves of specific frequencies or to select specific frequencies from a signal. It's all connected back to geometry. Shown in this example. And so if we look at several aspects of the function of cathedrals as frequency generators and transmitters, and I've got this graphic showing the correlation between frequencies and shapes and how that works together geometrically here. So this is an example of what I found when I was reading an article on elliptical polarization, where I encountered the diagram on the left showing the efficiency in decibels of the axial ratio of 2 antenna, and the shapes formed in the graph on the right, which came to my mind, which is a common shape of windows in cathedrals.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And I mean, they're the same.
Yeah, brilliant.
They're exactly the same. So it brings to mind the question, were these windows actually functioning as antenna? I would say yes, but that's intuitive. And the cathedral doors are the same thing.
Yeah.
And the work on the left is Walter Russell's diagram
Brilliant.
about octaves,
Yes.
and the cathedral door on the right. And they look the same. And Walter Russell's work has been suppressed.
Definitely, Michelle.
So it's all showing that it's like frequency in stone.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
we're seeing with these things.
And if you rearrange, if you take the S off of stone and put it to the end, it creates tones. And I know that wouldn't appeal to many people, but I am very wordy, and you know, stone and tone to me, they mirror each other. I think we should know this from all of our megaliths and different things around the world, and I think they're trying to show us there's a strong connection to vibration, frequency, and stone.
Right.
Stone
And there definitely is.
Yeah. The words are our
So
guide.
you've got the same thing with the piano notes on the left and cathedral rose windows.
Perfect. Great example.
Actually being a frequency.
Yeah, this is it. This is what, yeah.
So it's interesting that the Fürstenturm in Berlin, Fernsehturm, aligns up perfectly with the Berlin Dome. And it's the fourth tallest freestanding structure in Europe.
Wow.
And at the top, there's a restaurant and observation deck, and it's also a television tower. So I think towers like this one in Berlin, the ones that again are all over the earth, I think they were part of this original grid system as well. But they all have explanations, modern explanations as well. But when you look at, when you see it, you see all these towers that are lined up with it. As being part of this original energy grid system. Nothing was random. Everything had a reason for where it was placed and its shape and function and what it was doing. And we don't see that because our historical narrative is all filled with random occurrences. Yeah. About when cities were founded and who founded them and when things were built and all that kind of thing. We don't think of this.
Also, to give us credit, Michelle, we can't see from above. You know, a lot of this, you need a bird's eye view. You know, I feel, you know, we've got Google image maps today and we look from above and we see all these things. When you're on the ground walking on the street, it is kind of hard to work all this out, isn't it? So to give us fair due.
Yeah, it really took the invention of the internet and us having personal computers to being able to access this information. So I believe this building right in front of it, so we've got all these towers that are lining up, and this is one of them. You can see it here, these alignments. And this is Marienkirche, from St. Marienkirche. The exact age isn't known in our narrative, but then you've got these arched vaults in the cathedral and tall columns. And again, we see that all over the earth with these structures that's identical. You know, if you're looking in New Caledonia, island republic off the coast of Australia, find the same things. Doesn't matter where you look. And then that's in alignment with the down here in the Alexanderplatz with the train station, the Bahnhof, and the world time clock, which is this here. And again, you see they're in alignment with each other.
Yeah.
Just another view showing you that all the pins are basically in alignment. Just wanted to show you, heading in the other direction from these places is Humboldt University, and that was named after Alexander and Wilhelm von Humboldt. Was first opened in 1810. It was regarded as one of the world's preeminent universities in the study of natural sciences in the 1800s and 1900s. Famous faculty and alumni included names like Einstein, Marx, Engels, Bismarck, Hegel, and the Brothers Grimm. And it boasts 57 Nobel laureates, quite a bit more than any other German university. This was their school. All of our influencers. This was where they went to college.
Wow.
They were all part of one big club. And Alexander von Humboldt had a lot to do with the study of what I believe were the remnants of the giant trees, volcanoes, and the Earth's magnetic field. He was a pioneer in that work in the late 1700s, early 1800s. He went to Mount Teide on Tenerife to study that. That was in the early 1800s, and my belief is men like that in our narrative were out exploring the world after this energy grid was destroyed, and they had to go see what was left. And then this whole science that we're taught originated with people like this, and it's all connected to this worldview that we've been given, where you can't question the narrative, you can't bring in alternative theories, or you get blacklisted or censored. They just want one story, and that's the story that they put together. So I feel like it was a coin toss as whether it's going to become a university or a jail.
Yeah, like one of the
there's
two
a lot
poles.
of similarities between the two.
Yeah, the extremes. It's either one of the two extremes, isn't it? You know, as we've pointed out earlier, workhouses, prisons, hospitals, or universities and museums.
Right. And you've done that. You did that excellent study of, was it Cambridge or Oxford?
Oxford, yeah, the universities. The university.
You did a walkthrough, and you pointed out a whole bunch of stuff.
With Adam.
Like
Adam
what
was
you're
brilliant
saying.
on that with the ley lines.
So there's a lot of interconnecting pieces, but the first thing, in order to kind of disengage from the narrative, this was first opened in 1810. So they want us to believe it was built at that time.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take? Do you know how long they said it took? Because that's normally stupid, isn't it? It's normally a really short space of time, or...
Yeah, I'm not sure the number of years, but I do know that it opened in 1810. And again, this is how they've basically fooled us, and we just accept it because we don't have any other explanation, and why would they lie to us? But you have all of this tremendous architecture appearing sometimes even earlier than the 1800s, but a lot of it during the 1800s, early 1900s. So it's just something to hold out, because you just really have to start questioning what they told us to begin with. And was it even possible, according to what they told us, that we were capable of?
Don't you think that has an effect on its own? You know, us looking back now as people being told, oh, this was built by us and we did all this, and now we can't do any of that or imitate it. It almost makes us weaker people, doesn't it? It's almost a constraint, just that, by controlling the narrative, by like heightening that scale that we aren't that and we can't be that. You know, I think that kind of takes something away from us itself.
That's spot on, Chad. They don't want us to know what we're capable of. And they want to use these buildings to harvest energy and to indoctrinate. And that's the reality of it. You know, again, you don't have, it doesn't matter if you have a belief or not. It's just, they don't care if what they're teaching us isn't true. They need justification for what they've told us is real about our world. And trying to dumb us down and remove our critical thinking skills so we don't question the narrative. And society just hums along the way that they've orchestrated it for their own purposes, which are hidden from us. So another thing on this alignment is Brandenburg Gate and the Reichstag. So the Brandenburg Gate was said to have been built in 1788 and completed in 1796. So a little bit longer than what the narrative usually tells us. Yeah. And it was said to have been built on the orders of King Frederick William II of Prussia to represent peace. And that's our narrative. The Reichstag, another amazing dome on the alignment, houses the Bundestag, or the lower house of the German parliament, and is 1 block north of the Brandenburg Gate. So this building was said to have been begun in 1884 and completed in 1894. So 10 years.
Wow.
10 years is still, compared to what we see there, is not very long.
No.
The Reichstag fire of 1933 severely damaged the building. It was in February of that year, and they were told it was an act of arson. The Reichstag fire took place 4 weeks after Adolf Hitler was sworn in as Chancellor of Germany. As a result of the Reichstag fire, the fire decree was issued, which suspended civil liberties of German citizens. So that decree was used as a legal basis for the imprisonment of anyone considered to be opponents of the Nazis and or suppressing opposition publications. So that's how the system has handled suppression of information and dissent. Kind of like problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic. And Hegel went to Humboldt University. They create the problem. So if the Reichstag fire was in fact arson, they use that as justification for these oppressive actions of suspending civil liberties of German citizens. Right? Our history is just full of these kinds of manipulations to get our consent. So we would agree with whatever they have going on. That's how they get it, because if we knew what was going on, we wouldn't agree to it. So it was closed down until it was fully restored in the 90s, and then it was completed in 1999. Again, this is what our narrative tells us. But it's interesting that the new dome of the building is a vortex.
Yeah.
You can see here. So that's the shape, that's the motion of a torus.
Yeah. You can see the inner part as well, can't you? And then the outer.
You've got the inner part, and then you've got a hole up the top. So the energy would flow from as a continuous flow through us, even in our energy fields.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a powerful shape.
Very powerful.
So,
yeah.
So a vortex is defined in fluid dynamics as a region where the flow revolves around an axis line and is a name given to places where there's a swirling center of concentrated energy. So I've got some examples there compared to the vortex in the dome. And I just want to throw this in here. I found the bell tower at the Berlin Olympic Stadium, slightly offset, but it's close to the alignment that I've just gone through with you. And it was said to have been built, the bell tower was said to have been built in 1934 at the western end of the Olympic Stadium, shown here. And then in World War II, we were told Soviet troops accidentally set the tower on fire, which caused it to lose stability, which caused British engineers to blow it up in 1947, causing the steel Olympic F-sharp bell weighing 9.6 tons to fall to the ground and crack, and unable to sound ever since. And the bell tower was said to have been rebuilt between 1960 and 1962. And the bell was rescued in 1956, the Olympic bell, but it was used as target practice for anti-tank ammunition. But after all that abuse, the old bell is still around and a memorial today. There's something they don't like about the bell towers and frequencies and so forth. The bell tower at the Berlin Olympic Stadium and Berlin Dome Cathedral are separated by only roughly 7 miles or almost 11 kilometers, and it's in a straight line. So that goes back to this whole concept of ley lines and as being part of this energy grid. Okay, the last area that I put together for our talk today is something that I think all of us can relate to. The work cycle, resource and self-extraction.
Yeah.
And for this one, I'm going to use examples of the work cycle of resource and self-extraction system of labor where resources are harvested, people's physical and cognitive energy are harvested to work. Corporations convert this output into profit. Wages are spent to acquire things that are required to live in the system, and the cycle repeats continuously, forcing people to continuously generate energy to survive. And this is something I think that even newcomers to this information can relate to and understand. I think maybe the clearest example of that.
Definitely, we're talking the 9 to 5, we're talking the traffic, we're talking the media, we're talking all of that, the cycle, the hamster's wheel, some people may call it.
I found the examples that I'm going to share when I was tracking what's called the Serpent Ley back in the summer of 2023. This particular ley line was identified by a geographer, Peter Champoux, and that is geographer and not geographer. I took an in-depth trek of it from the Bermuda Triangle through the Great Serpent Mound in Ohio to Lake Itasca in Minnesota, and contained something of everything: starports and lighthouses, abandoned railroads, giant trees, hardwood swamps, dunes and mounds with perfect astronomical alignments, giants, fires, floods, extensive resource harvesting, mills, mines, company towns, you name it. So I'm just going to cover a few of the many examples that I found tracking this particular ley line and others for the purposes of our conversation.
Perfect.
So, for example, Asheboro, North Carolina is situated directly on this alignment, which is over here, the red line here.
Mm-hmm.
Asheboro has been the county seat of Randolph County since 1796, and I typically find county seats and state capitals on these ley lines. So in this slide, the lumber baron Page family of Aberdeen, North Carolina, were said to have been behind the construction of what became first known as the Aberdeen and Asheboro Railroad in 1897 to facilitate their logging activities and the harvesting of naval stores from pine trees of tar, pitch, and turpentine, as well as being highly involved in other areas of economic development of the region. So that's a typical story. They had to build the railroad so they could chop down the trees, so they could get the resources out of there, so they could have something for their mills. So that's one example. And then Asheboro became a textile production center, and this was one of the mills, the Acme McCreary Hosiery Mill. It first opened in 1909, and it became the third largest producer of private label hosiery in the world. And there were many of these hosiery and textile mills in Asheboro. Now, keep in mind, we're right on this serpent alignment. I mean, like, we're like dead on. So again, we're talking about the harvesting of energy from this original energy grid system.
And mills were key to that, weren't they? Mills, you know, mills of the past in the UK, the same mills, turn the M upside down, your will. You know, it was essential.
And then you got the power lines going right beside it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that would be part of it too, things we don't think about. Further on up the alignment, you come into High Point, and that was a furniture manufacturing hub. So High Point is close to the Research Triangle in North Carolina. It's famous. I'm going to give some examples here in just a moment of another kind of harvesting, but it's formed by Chapel Hill, where the University of North Carolina is, Durham, and Raleigh. And this area here around High Point is, again, a primary manufacturing and transportation hub in the southeastern United States. They've got all these roads and routes going through here. So the Research Triangle name came about in the 1950s when it was created between those anchor points of Chapel Hill, Durham, and Raleigh.
Wow.
And it's the largest research park in the United States. And what's interesting about that when I found out that this Research Triangle Park is home to a number of agricultural technology companies. Like, they're involved in the creation of GMO crops. And all of these GMO companies listed here have either facilities in or have in the past in the Research Triangle. So they grow GMOs. Bayer acquired Monsanto in June of 2018 after it gained regulatory approvals in the United States and the EU. for $66 billion in cash, and the name of Monsanto is no longer used. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about with GMOs. Things that they want to hide from us. And Monsanto does not have a good name. And most people know that, if not everybody. Weed killers, like things in glyphosate in weed killers. Agent Orange was manufactured by Monsanto, saccharin, and the whole host of other basically poisons that were introduced into our world.
Yeah.
Either directly into our food or secondarily into our crops. So that's going on on these ley lines. They're using the power of the ley lines for their own experiments, agricultural and otherwise, I'm sure. So in this slide, with regards to the Piedmont Triangle, of where High Point's located, the central location and the transportation infrastructure of the highways brought in raw resources like lumber and cotton, and a manufacturing industry sprang up to process them, and it became a major manufacturing center for things like woodworking and textiles. And that's in High Point. Also dead on this serpent ley alignment. So this is a good place to bring up the subject of mill and factory and other kinds of company towns. Mill towns emerged primarily in Europe and the east coast of the United States starting in the early to mid 1800s. They were typically company towns where one company is the main employer and owns practically everything in the town: stores, houses, churches, schools, and recreational facilities. And we are entering the region of the United States known as Appalachia, shown in white on this map, named after the Appalachian Mountains, which run in a northeast to southwest direction through this entire region, including, but far from being limited to, the furniture and textile mills of North Carolina, the coal mines of West Virginia, the steel mills of Pennsylvania. The natural resource-rich region of Appalachia was filled with these company towns. The people of these towns were pretty much dependent on the company for everything. They had a job for life working for the company, but they weren't paid much. And the company got it all back from them anyway because they owned everything.
You've got to remember, up until this point, life didn't exist like this, did it? You know, you're scattering for resources, aren't you? This is where the manipulation. Perfect.
Yep. Right. Exactly. It's all tied to their new system, their inverted system, and harnessing human energy to power the economy and make them incredibly rich, and how they got money to take over everything and bring us the world we live in today.
By stealing, yes.
And so, like in this example, the mill store tokens, Appalachia historically and even today is one of the poorest regions in the United States, and is believed that the cycles of poverty came as a direct result of these company town structures. Railroad, coal, lumber, and banking barons early on controlled the capitalistic economic system that came into form in largely rural Appalachia. They offered pay, boarding, and subsistence farming in return for a 16-hour workday. In many places, their pay came in the form of scrip instead of dollars that could only be used in the company's stores.
Wow.
Like what we see here. Pretty much the definition of wage slavery.
Yeah.
Then, to add insult to injury, the companies outsourced their menial, low-paying job model in other countries, leaving American company towns high and dry. And that happened worldwide, I'm sure. So next I'm going to look at Pilot Mountain, which is on this same alignment. And we've talked about it in past videos. Pilot Mountain is one of the most distinctive natural features in the state of North Carolina. And it's got actually two, one's called Big Pinnacle and the other Little Pinnacle. Read giant tree into that.
Yeah.
It's described as a quartzite monadnock. And here are some other examples of places classified as monadnocks. Besides Pilot Mountain on the top left, Harteigen in Norway is on the top right. Devil's Tower in Wyoming on the bottom left, and Karura in Australia on the bottom right. So I suspect monadnock is a cover-up word for gigantic tree stumps. And there's some examples of giant trees and stumps that are actually called that. You would look at that and know that was a tree.
Which are still babies compared to some of the examples which we're talking about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And Pilot Mountain is on the western end of what are called the Soratown Mountains. And they are described as an isolated mountain range, sometimes called the mountains away from the mountains, making it sound like there's probably a lot of big giant tree stumps there. And then I'm just showing where it crosses, this red line here crosses into Virginia and the Appalachian Mountains. And what you start to see how the landscape looks here. And I've got a closer up view of it. This is Earth from space of that area on the left, and then on the right you see what a tree root network on the ground.
Brilliant.
It's just interesting. And then I found a lot of intriguing places on the alignment going through here on Google Earth, but I just am narrowing it down to a few places because there's so many more examples. So we're going to look at Welch, West Virginia. Not too far from this alignment. There's major coal mining through this area here. And this is the courthouse in Welch, and this building was said to be constructed between 1893 and 1894. So there's one of your one-year build periods. And Welch was named the county seat in 1892. That particular courthouse is famous because it was where Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers were murdered on the courthouse steps in 1921 by Baldwin Felts agents. And that was related to the either Matewan or Matawan massacre. And that took place in the Pocahontas mining district of southwestern West Virginia on May 19th of 1921, when detectives from the Baldwin Felts Agency came to evict families that had been living at the Stone Mountain coal camp. They served eviction notices, went to eat, and when they left to go to the train station, long story short, they were surrounded by armed miners and 2 detectives. 7 miners and the town's mayor were killed. So there was tremendous oppression of the people that were working there. Again, they had next to nothing. They couldn't complain. They tried to, and they bring in these agents or strike breakers or whatever was going on. So they basically strangled any efforts to try to get a better life for themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's this violence that's associated with this time period. So it was a result of this time that the United Mine Workers in America were trying to unionize the mine, and a place where miners worked long hours in unsafe and poor conditions, received a low wage, and were paid in company script for the company store. But the massacre that I just talked about marked a turning point for miners' rights, and the National Industrial Recovery Act of 1933 was passed 13 years after that, when labor unions were recognized by the federal government. Lots of stuff happened before that happened, and I'm sure it didn't solve the problem. But those were the conditions that people were working under. By 1960, McDowell County, where this is located, was ranked #1 in total coal production in the United States. And Welch billed itself as the heart of the nation's coal bin. And then the demand for coal with steel mill closure started to decline in the 1970s, and the need for coal miners along with it. So that led to job loss and reduced income, and many people leaving to find work elsewhere. So I'm just going to end with this one last example of Gary, Indiana, which is really interesting. I found this on the same alignment. It's right next to the Indiana Dunes. And what we're told about Gary is that it was named after Albert Henry Gary. And he was a founder of U.S. Steel in 1901, along with J.P. Morgan, Andrew Carnegie, and Charles M. Schwab. And he was the second president of U.S. Steel from 1903 to 1911. And so we're told that in June of 1906, the location of what became the city of Gary, about 26 miles or 42 kilometers east of Chicago, Illinois, was a wasteland of drifting sand and patches of scrub oak. No one lived there, and there was no agricultural value to the land. This was in June of 1906. That was said about it. So this picture was taken April 18th of 1906. So they're just there and looking important, surrounded by terrible looking land. The next thing that happened was in June of that year, in 1906, that the first shovelful of sand was turned for the creation of the new steel town of Gary. So laborers were housed in tents and shacks and were digging trenches as very little work was being done above ground. Okay, so that's that picture. By November of 1908, the city of Gary had taken on its shape and form. So all of a sudden you see these massive buildings.
In 2 years.
Yeah. In 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was called the Magic City, or one of the Magic Cities. There's several of them, having been transformed from sand dunes in record time. This is one of my examples that I like to provide about that, how everything was just covered in dirt of some kind, sand, mud flood, whatever you want to call it. And they dug these places out. They didn't build squat. They dug it out. And that this is where the U.S. Steel mill was built. This was the largest steel mill complex in the world. And it started operating in June of 1908. So that was only 2 years after the first shovelful of sand was turned at this location. And so it was the site of one of the steel strikes in 1919. The American Federation of Labor was attempting to organize a labor union in the leading company in the American steel industry, which led to strikes at U.S. Steel across the country. In Gary, a riot broke out on October 4th of 1919 between steel workers and strike breakers brought in from the outside, and several days later, the Indiana governor declared martial law and brought in 4,000 federal troops commanded by Major General Leonard Wood to restore order. By January of 1920, the strike had collapsed completely, and U.S. Steel had successfully opposed unionization efforts at that time, and it would be many years before unionization efforts in the steel industry resumed. And while U.S. Steel is still the largest employer in Gary, and it's still a major steel producer, it has significantly reduced its workforce due to the increase in overseas competitiveness in the steel industry over the years. And Gary, Indiana, has been in decline for years, with a lot of population loss and abandonment of much of the city, a lot of unemployment and decaying infrastructure. Pretty typical story.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to end with this example of a clear pattern emerging along this ley line of available resources, which included things like lumber, coal, and iron ore, being harvested and processed by workers in their local communities who have no choice and or are forced to work as wage slaves in order to have some kind of income, just to be able to survive in places owned by the companies who supplied all their other needs as well. And that's
Brilliant,
what I
Michelle.
have today.
Brilliant, Michelle. So there you have it, folks, man. Energy manipulation, evidence at its finest from the female Ken Burns. And you know, like, I just want to say at this point, no matter your race, your colour, your belief system, God, what football team you support, what me and Michelle are trying to say doesn't matter. This is a message to everybody, and our message kind of hopefully puts down all the barriers, all the fences, puts us all as one, and the message is clear, and it's that we're being manipulated and we need to take back our energy, and that is every single one of us again, no matter what creed, colour, status, race, what football team you support, what you eat, what you don't. It's everybody. So this is humanity, you know. And we go one step deeper. We all bleed the same, and that's the we're the ones that need to stick together. At the end of the day, we're the one powering this system. We're the energy of it, and the only way to stop it is to direct our energy in a different way, or take back control of our energy, which is really hard. But the first point is talking about it and remembering.
Right. Just remember, love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it is.
This is it. Yeah.
And they don't want us to realize that.
Yeah. And everything, Michelle, is set up to make us hate each other. Rarely do you see anything to, set up to make us love each other. And when it is, it's our own doing. It's us doing that. It's not the higher powers. It's us in our own relationships and with our family and all the things that we do individually. That is life. That is beautiful. I'm never going to sit here and say life isn't, because life and the essence of life is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, the narrative's disgusting, but that's the duality. And, so for so long have we hated each other. We've turned against each other. There's been division, and there doesn't need to be. It's all because of the media and the inputs and the external influences, which by dividing us, they can control us. The worst thing we can do is come together, because then we have power. Come
together. And love is a powerful force. Doesn't mean, everything's okay, sweetheart.
Yeah.
It's all right. That's not what we're talking about.
No,
it's the vibration, the frequency of love, which is our true natures. Yes. It's not this messed up brute, murderous brute that we're portrayed as, this beast that they've been trying to create from beautiful beings.
Yes.
It's a state of mind. It's justice will take its course.
We don't need to be angry.
However, we don't have to have an emotional reaction, which is where they get their charge.
Yes.
And what they've been manipulating.
So love and light. Love and light to you. Michelle, you are absolutely wonderful. You are an absolute star. I'm sitting here and I'm doing this presentation with you, and the information you presented is just hitting so on point. And the fact that you've gone out and done all that, yourself over the years, and it's astonishing, and I love you for it. And I think everybody watching this will too. If my job was anything here, it was just to add a commonness to it. An average, a common outlook, setting a summary and a conclusion for people like my Nan and Jess, because those are the people that I want to see. I don't want them to be upset and angry, and that's what me and Michelle are saying, but I just want them to be aware. I don't want them to turn the news on and start crying or being upset or fearful. And I don't want their energy to constantly be manipulated. And it's the same with every other single person, because you're all my brothers and sisters, really.
And Chad, I just want you to know, I feel the same way about you. I feel like the work that you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. And the really interesting thing is how we connected and brought our two lines of research together in such a seamless way. It just feels right and easy. It's easy to work with you. So I feel like I've got one part of the equation and you've got the other part of the equation.
I love that. I feel that, as you say, there's a soul connection with us. I don't know. It's beautiful, and that's life. And that's what I mean by the beauty of life. The things that we do individually, the personal connections, that's beautiful. That is it divine, and it is, and it's like, is it God's, and all these beautiful, people call them coincidences. Me and you say we don't believe in coincidence, so it's guided and it's beautiful. And when we work, it feels like it just comes together like it was meant to, like salt and vinegar on chips. Or I don't know.
That's my favorite. I love salt and vinegar chips. Yeah, it's interesting because the synchronicities and the flow of the work that we're doing, and find that with some other people as well. It's easy.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And I always look forward to your magic when you start working on the video and do the editing and put your own special touches on it. And so looking forward to when this is ready to go.
That's
But,
it.
especially now, it's just important to keep getting this information out there for people to view and hopefully cause a perceptual shift.
Yeah.
And start looking at things differently. It's just so important. If we want to move forward from where we are, we have tremendous possibilities and tremendous potential to create a much better world. But in order to do that, we have to break the shackles that have been placed on us by this false matrix.
Brilliant.
It's just, I don't know that everybody has to wake up, but I think enough have to wake up. And that will cause a shift in the collective consciousness and awareness. And I think we're on our way there. I mean, we may already be there. And it's just, everything has to play out, and we have to watch this old system fail and fall away. And it's been exposed. It's being exposed now like it's never been before. So we just have to keep pushing that so it gets exposed even more.
That's it. And we're never surprised at anything, are we? I suppose that's the other angle of it. There's a lot of dark still to come out. We feel like the dark is dark at the moment. I still believe there's a lot of dark, more dark to come. So it's to be prepared for that, and remember the overall objective, which is unity, isn't it? If we want a better world, and even if it's not for us, if it's for our children, if it's for humanity, whatever cause you've got, we've got to put action in, haven't we? We can't expect it to happen.
Right. We have to be involved, but I do think we will see it. I think it's going to be in our lifetimes, because if we continued on the same trajectory without any change, darkness had got such a foothold in our world. I think it wouldn't be necessarily good if this was drawn out any longer than it's already been drawn out. It's already been drawn out a lot as far as what I follow and what I would expect. But I do feel like we're making progress, and will continue to make progress, and start to see some changes in the bigger picture. And we still haven't gotten quite to the point where that's clear and obvious, but I think we're getting closer and closer. So just don't give up hope. Don't do that. Don't give up hope ever that we won't have a better future and that evil wins, because it doesn't.
This is it. Love and light to everybody. Michelle, thank you so much. I love you.
Yeah. Love and light, Chad. Thank you so much for being you, and for all the light that you bring to the world. You're an amazing person.
So much more to do. You're amazing. We're amazing. We've got so much more, and the next one I'm sure will be great as well. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thinking about the times before we sat with eyes froze on black screens, lost within the news feeds. But numbers on the big screen, vaccines. Keep that shit, them tax thieves, they treat us like we batteries. All our grandparents used to work in factories. Job role changed, but we all still use like batteries. Powering up that system got us working max speed. Rushing back in traffic just to see a bit of family. TV on, emotions numb, we call it family time. Eyes locked down in screens and know we lost in time. And remember working for things that should be free. I know you understand. Every day I ask myself how long we gonna stand this. Years upon years they've been taking our resources to sell it back to us and your families. And rich get richer, will the poor scroll on? New methods, inventions every day to make us all dumb. But more than ever now I'm seeing that we're awake. The light shines bright, the darkness shades, shedding light into the darkness of place. So hold on tight and know it's alright. We see in all the darkness. Don't ask questions, just follow the line.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.